Kola and Simi lay together, the moonlight softly illuminating their entwined bodies. Kola gently caressed Simi's skin, his eyes gleaming mischievously in the dim light. His magnetic charm had always drawn women to him, and tonight was no different. As he softly brushed her cheek, his voice took on a playful tone. "Babe," he whispered, "what's the similarity between a snake and a man's? Simi blinked, caught off guard. The mood began to shift from intimacy to confusion. "What?" she asked, frowning. "Kola, you're ruining the moment. What kind of question is that?" But Kola remained persistent, his grin fading as he repeated in a more serious tone. "What's the similarity between a snake and a man's? Signing with frustration, Simi rolled her eyes, her mood quickly turning sour. "I don't know," she muttered. "They both look alike," Kola answered cryptically, his demeanor suddenly shifting. Before Simi could react, Kola began to whistle, a soft, eerie melody that seemed to hang in the thick night air. Simi's eyes widened, confusion morphing into fear as something stirred in Kola's trousers. Slowly, a long, menacing snake began to slither out, its scales shimmering in the faint light. Simi screamed in terror as the snake lunged at her, sinking its fangs into her neck. She collapsed onto the bed, her body twitching before becoming still, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. By morning, the village of Abaro was buzzing with shocking news. Simi had been found lifeless in the village square, her body cold and pale from a venomous snake bite. The villagers whispered in horror as rumors spread like wildfire. Disturbed by the string of mysterious deaths, the king of Abaro issued a royal decree. The snake responsible must be hunted down. The finest hunters in the land were promised a grand reward if they succeeded in capturing the deadly creature. Kola, however, was no ordinary man. He was an enigma, a figure of desire and mystery within the village. His dark eyes, sculpted frame, and effortless charm drew women to him like moth to a flame. Yet, Kola harbored a deadly secret. He didn't have a man's anatomy like others. Instead, he possessed a snake that lived within him, summoned by his eerie, hypnotic whistle. Each time he seduced a woman, he whistled, unleashing the snake to strike its victim without mercy. The villagers were terrified. Many women had died under similar circumstances, their bodies found pale and lifeless after mysterious snake bites. Despite countless searches by hunters, the elusive snake remained undetected. Some villagers began to whisper about hearing strange whistles at night, just before another woman was found dead. Yet, no one dared to suspect Kola, the charming builder who had constructed many of the village's homes. One afternoon, Kola made his way to the village well, where women gathered to fetch water. As always, his presence caused a stir. Women giggled and whispered, each hoping to catch his eyes. But among the crowd that day, someone stood out, someone different. A woman Kola had never seen before approached the well. She was breathtakingly beautiful, her skin glowing under the bright sun, and her traditional attire cascaded in vibrant colors. She was new to the village of Abaru and has made her way to the well. Every man and woman stepped aside, mesmerized by her beauty. Even Kola, confident and accustomed to being the center of attention, found himself captivated. Who was this woman, and why wasn't she drawn to him like the others? Determined to win her attention, Kola flexed his six-packs under the sun, certain that no woman could resist him. but she barely glanced his way before turning her back, uninterested. Frustration burned inside him. How could his charm fail? Every other woman in the village was desperate for his attention, yet she acted as if he didn't exist. His irritation grew as she splashed him with water while filling her pot. "Would you help me carry this?" she asked, her voice smooth and indifferent. Kola clenched his jaw, his ego bruised. Other men immediately stepped forward, eager to help the stunning woman, each trying to outdo the other. Swallowing his pride, Kola offered to carry the pot for her, determined to prove himself. As they walked to her house, she finally introduced herself. "My name is Amara," she said. "And I'm Kola," he replied, expecting her to recognize his name. She smiled. "I've heard the women talk about you." His ego swelled, but before he could gloat, Amara added, "You're handsome, but not really my type." Her words stung like a slap. Kola forced a smile, hiding his anger. Inside, he promised to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. He told her he had more to offer than just his looks, hinting that she should focus on what was inside him, his secret weapon. When they reached her house, Kola greeted Amara's parents, who invited him to stay for dinner. That evening, over a modest meal, Amara's parents were curious about the man their daughter had brought home. They had heard of Kola's reputation but wanted to know more. Amara's father leaned forward. "So, Kola, what do you do for a living?" Kola smiled humbly. "I'm a builder. I've built many of the houses in this village, but I've never seen your family before. Have you recently moved here?" Amara answered for them. "Yes, we are from another village and just settled here recently." She glanced at her parents before continuing. "But there are rumors about snakes killing women. My parents are terrified for me." Kola shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his face growing serious. "Yes, I've heard about the snakes too. It's strange, isn't it? They only target women, mothers, sisters, daughters." He paused, feigning concern. "No one knows why." Amara's eyes widened in curiosity. "And what about the whistling sound?" "Villagers say they hear it the night before the women are found dead. I've tried mimicking it, but it never sounds right." She attempted a weak whistle, which came out flat. Kola chuckled nervously, shifting again. They say snakes have their own language. Whistling is how they communicate. And if I ever hear that whistle, I'll be the first to fight that snake." Amara's parents exchanged pleased glances. Her mother smiled warmly. "You're a good man, Kola. It's rare to find someone willing to fight for the woman he loves." Her father nodded, adding, "You have our blessing to marry Amara." Kola stood up and bowed respectfully, showing his gratitude. In his mind, however, he was already plotting how to win over Amara completely. Over the few weeks, Kola did everything he could to earn her affection. He showered her with gifts, beautiful dresses, jewelry, anything she desired. But Amara remained distant, unaffected by his attempts. No woman had ever resisted him this long, and it drove him mad. But Amara was different. She refused to give in to his advances, insisting that he must marry her before they became intimate. Kola, growing more frustrated by the day, found himself doing things he never thought he would. Fetching water for Amara's family every day, smearing the hurts with fresh cow dung to make it shine. His obsession with winning Amara's love consumed him, and soon he found himself falling for her, not just for the challenge she presented, but for the way she made him feel. All he wanted now was her validation and heart. One day, while Kola was at his hut, he whistled softly, allowing the snake hidden in his possession to slither out for fresh air. Its scales glistened lazily in the sunset, but as Amara approached, Kola quickly whistled again, sending the snake back into its hiding place. He couldn't let her see it. Not yet. That evening, as Kola fetched water for Amara at the well, a storm began to brew. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the wind howled through the trees. The women who admired Kola couldn't hide their jealousy any longer. They shouted at Amara, accusing her of playing hard to get. Kola loves you, one woman shouted. Why are you pretending? If you don't want him, give him to us. Amara, humiliated and frustrated, turned to Kola. Give me my pot, I'll carry it myself. But Kola refused, his gaze cold as he glared at the other women. None of you could ever be like Amara, he said firmly. That's why I choose her, not you. The women fell silent, their faces burning with shame. As Kola and Amara walked away, she glanced at him, a small smile playing on her lips. What? Kola asked, noticing the change in her demeanor. I love you, she said softly, leaning in to kiss his cheek. Kola, caught off guard, put down the pot and hugged her tightly. Are you serious? He asked, grinning like a fool. Amara nodded, and as the rain began to fall, they ran to her house, laughing like children. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted. The house was warm, and the storm outside only intensified the intimacy. Amara's parents were not back yet, and the rain drummed steadily on the thatched roof as Kola and Amara sat beside each other, their breaths mingling in the damp, chilly air. A flicker of nervousness ran through Kola for the first time in his life. This wasn't like the other women who had fallen at his feet. Amara had made him wait, teased him with her hard-to-get attitude, and now, finally, they were alone in the dim light. Amara shivered slightly, not just from the cold, but from the tension between them. Her dress clung to her form, drenched from the rain. Kola reached for her, his hands brushing against her wet skin, his heart pounding, excitement surging through him. He leaned in to kiss her neck, his lips caressing the curve of her shoulder. The room was silent except for their soft breathing as they lay on the bed. Amara's heart raced, her mind battling a whirlwind of emotions. She felt something unsettling beneath Kola's calm, but decided to follow her heart. Kola's hand slid down her back as he grinned to himself. Finally, he thought. She thought she was special, didn't she? But here she is, just like all the others, ready to give herself to me. He could barely contain the wicked satisfaction that surged within him. In his mind, he whispered, I have you right where I want you, Amara. A twisted smile appeared on his face, and his eyes gleamed as he spoke softly. Hey, baby, he murmured, sinking into the warmth of the moment. What's the similarity between a woman and a... Kola's voice dripped with malice as he continued, but before he could finish, Amara's eyes flew open. Her brows furrowed in confusion. What did you say? She asked, pulling back slightly. What are you talking about? You're killing the vibe, Kola muted, his smile widening as his voice took on a mocking tone. No, seriously, what's the similarity between a snake and a whale, Amara stared at him, her confusion turning quickly into frustration. Why are you asking this? She said, irritated. Fine, I don't know. What is it? Kola's smile turned predatory. They both raised their heads. When provoked, he smiled, his voice strange. Amara blinked, stunned by his bizarre anger, but something shifted in the air, a coldness that replaced the heat between them. Her instincts flared. There was something deeply unsettling about his words. Kola leaned closer, his eyes darkening with anticipation. Tell me another similarity, he demanded. Amara, now on the edge, didn't like where this was going. Kola, stop this, it's weird. But Kola's expression didn't soften. He repeated more firmly, tell me. Desperate to diffuse the confusion, Amara snapped. They both make women scream. She crossed her hands, glaring at him, hoping her words would end the bizarre conversation. But Kola let out a cruel, chilling laugh that echoed in the room. It was the kind of laughter that made her stomach drop. He leaned even closer, his breath hot against her ear. "Then I want to hear you scream," he hissed. In an instant, Kola's mouth opened, preparing to whisper, his eyes gleaming with sinister intent. But before he could make a sound, Amara's fist flew out, striking him square in the throat with all her strength. Kola gasped, clutching his neck in shock. Amara wasted no time. She began to whistle, the same eerie tone Kola had used to summon his snake. Kola's eyes widened in terror and disbelief as the snake began to emerge from his own pants. Its sleek, scaly body slithered out, its sharp eyes locking onto him, ready to strike. Amara did not stop. She continued to whistle, commanding the snake with perfect precision. The serpent lunged, sinking his fang into Kola's neck. His body jerked violently as the venom surged through his veins. He collapsed onto the floor, writhing in agony. Amara, with steady hands, pulled out a knife hidden in her waistband, and with one swift motion, decapitated the snake. Its head rolled across the floor, lifeless, as she stomped down on it, crushing it beneath her heel. Kola's body convulsed on the floor, his face pale, his breath shallow. He tried to speak, but only a weak gurgle escaped from his mouth as he struggled to grasp the situation unraveling before him. "You can come out now," Amara said calmly, her voice steady as she crouched towards the door. Two figures emerged from the shadows, Amara's parents, but as they stepped further, their true identities were revealed. The older man was not an ordinary villager, but the king himself, the king of Anor. Beside him was not Amara's mother, but the royal family's most trusted servant, a warrior disguised as a mere woman. Kola's eyes bulged in disbelief as he stared at them. "No, this can't be," he croaked. "You didn't think you could keep your secret forever, did you?" Amara's voice was cool and unflinching. "I am Princess Amara, and you are nothing but a monster who thought he could keep terrorizing our people." Kola gasped for air, the venom already paralyzing his limbs. How did you?" he choked. Amara stood above him, her eyes cold and unforgiving. They had been pretending so that they could finally capture the snake that had been terrorizing the village. They knew it was no ordinary snake, otherwise, why would it target women? Amara didn't know who the snake's master was at first, but she had heard a mysterious whistle that day when Kola let the snake out of his pants for fresh air. She practiced the tune on other snakes and mastered it. Only the one who mastered the whistle could command the snake to attack. Amara had known all along that Kola was a serial woman killer, and he could never truly love anyone, no matter how much he pretended. So she waited and fooled him until he fell into the trap. Now, there he lay in the room, turning pale from the venom, his eyes wide in shock as the life slowly drained from his body. They dragged him outside to the village square, where the villagers had gathered to witness the devil himself and the end of the terror that had plagued them for so long. Women who had once admired Kola now spat on his lifeless form, their faces twisted with disgust and anger. He was nothing but a snake in disguise. How could we have been so blinded and fallen for such trash? The women shouted, shaking their heads. By dawn, Kola's body, along with the snake's head, was burned in the fire in the village square, the flames erasing any trace of the horror he had inflicted on the kingdom. As the sun rose, Princess Amara and the king stood before the people, the villagers bowing low in reverence. "Forgive us, princess," one woman said, tears in her eyes. "We didn't know it was you. We never meant to insult you." Amara smiled kindly, her heart softened by the people's remorse. "There's nothing to forgive," she said gently. You didn't know. The villagers bowed deeply before the king and princess. For most, this was the first time they had ever laid eyes on them. The king, a figure of legend, and Princess Amara, known for her grace and beauty, were whispered about in every corner of the kingdom. Only a few were allowed to enter the palace, so the sight of them in person sent waves of awe across the gathered crowd. People murmured among themselves, eyes wide, trying to take in the royal presence. Some were bold enough to step forward and ask for favors. A few begged for jobs in the palace, hoping to serve under the king's rule. Others, desperate for relief, asked for money to ease their burdens, knowing that it was the king's duty to protect and provide for all the villages in his kingdom. As Amara and her father prepared to return to the palace, a beautifully adorned palanquin was brought forth. They stepped inside gracefully, the crowd parting with reverence as they were carried away. The villagers couldn't help but marvel at what has just transpired. Not only had they been in the presence of royalty, but their village had now been saved from a terror none of them could ever imagine. A man with a snake for a penis, a psychopath, one who had preyed on women for far too long. Who would have ever believed such a thing existed? As the palanquin vanished from the sight, a sense of relief washed over the village. They had been spared their lives, forever changed by the bravery of Princess Amara and her father, the king. Amara was hailed as a hero throughout the kingdom, and her name will be remembered for generations as the princess who outsmarted a serial killer with a snake for a penis and freed her people from terror. And so the kingdom of Anor thrived once again, its women safe, its people united in peace. What do you think about the story, guys? Did you like the story? Don't forget to like this video. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified each time I post new videos. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.